So in the early 2000s, a European collector was selling a bunch of NES prototypes. One game in their collection in particular was titled Sunman, which was an unfamiliar title. Thankfully, a member of the preservation community bought this game from the collector and then dumped the ROM on a website called lostlevels.org. After playing it, people were surprised to see a unique platformer that's almost complete. But this game was never previously known about. There weren't any magazine articles talking about the game or anything like that. So where did this prototype come from? Why wasn't it released? Why was it a big secret until now? Well, I have some of the answers. Let's take a look. Sup guys, it's Podrez, coming at you with another video. You guys tired of seeing my face? So we're going to talk about Sunman. This game was previously a licensed-based game, but then it became Sunman, and then it wasn't released at all. What happened? With that said, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, it helps out the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you like retro content and obscure gaming stories, feel free to drop a subscription. It's only a small thing on your part, but it helps me out greatly. Anyway, let's talk about Sunman. So with the success of the Batman movie in 1989, Sunsoft secured the license to make a game tie-in. Using this, they produced 2 Batman games on the NES. The first game is considered one of the best games on the console. The platforming is fun, you have this cool wall jumping ability, the graphics are dark, which captures the atmosphere of the movie very well, and the music is fantastic. Now normally licensed games on the NES tend to be mediocre, but this one is the rare exception. However, one of the most underrated games on the NES is Batman Return of the Joker. The physics are really nice, the frame rate is perfect, the graphics are fantastic, honestly this could pass for a Sega Genesis game, and the music is really good. When people think of Batman video games, most people think of the first NES game, but I personally think of this one. So, since the first 2 games were successful, Sunsoft commissioned a smaller game company, EIM, to begin development on a Superman game, which was another DC Comics franchise. Like with the Batman games, the graphics are very nice, Superman is well detailed, and there's some nice parallax scrolling in one of the auto-scrollers. The music is a rendition of John Williams' Superman theme, and it sounds fantastic on the NES. Even though this game was developed by EIM, it really did feel like a Sunsoft game. So in the early build of the game, there were some aspects that were rough around the edges. For example, these green blocks are difficult and kind of annoying to break through. Also, the stage was supposed to have hazards that move up and down, but at this point in development, it hadn't been programmed yet. When you fight the first boss, you can only shoot forward, so if the enemy is behind you, you really have no way to attack them. When you defeat the boss, the game stops and you can't progress until you use the level select code. The auto-scroller on stage 2 has absolutely no content at all, and you're stuck here forever unless you use that aforementioned level select code. The second part of stage 2 features another auto-scroller that's inside a cave, and here you can actually shoot enemies and blocks down. Pretty cool. So this early prototype, it's only got 3 levels, and then it brings you back to stage 1. As Superman, you can run, jump, and punch, but you can also fly infinitely. Now, yeah, this makes sense, I mean he is Superman, but it seems overpowered that you can fly forever without any drawbacks. But this is just a prototype, so maybe the next build will address this. But overall, even though this isn't finished, it's an excellent start. Unfortunately though, this prototype is all we have. This game never got released, and we never saw a Superman game by Sunsoft on the NES. Why not? Well, you're not gonna believe the reason. So it was common for game developers to make a prototype of a game based on a character before they secure the license to said character. This may sound stupid, but think about it this way. If I want to make a game based on Mickey Mouse, but I don't have the license, I'm going to make a decent looking prototype of the game and then meet with Disney and try to pitch it with them. That way, I have a higher chance of getting the green light to make my game. During the development of Superman, the director of EIM, Kenji Eno, would meet with DC Comics about their game. According to him, DC Comics gave feedback about their prototype. DC wanted Batman to be completely immune to damage and unable to die. Now, this might have made sense to DC Comics. After all, Superman is really strong in the movies and comics, but it's clear that DC Comics had no understanding of video games. So because of the unrealistic demands from DC Comics, Sunsoft ended up not going forward with the release of this game. It's a shame because the prototype looked really good and Sunsoft didn't want it to go to waste, so they came up with an idea. So if DC Comics is the only hurdle keeping them from making this game, then the solution is simple: take Superman out. That way, Sunsoft doesn't need to meet DC's demands and EIM can make their game the way they want to. It wouldn't be the first time Sunsoft did something like this. When they were developing a game based on the Terminator, they lost the license before release, so they changed the game to Journey of Silius. So they took out Superman and replaced him with Sunman. This new superhero was a completely original creation by Sunsoft. They also took out the John Williams theme. Now that the game is completely free of copyright issues, they can continue development. They even managed to make a near-complete version of Sunman. Let's take a look. So I'll go over the changes first. They added a title screen and even a little cutscene at the beginning. Remember those green blocks that were hard to break? They made them much easier to demolish here, and now the stage has hazards that move up and down, unlike before. When fighting the boss, you can actually shoot left and right now. In Stage 2, they made some additional changes. In the first part, now there are actually enemies you have to avoid. Surprisingly, the second part of Stage 2 is no longer an auto-scroller. I guess they didn't like the idea. So unlike the prototype, which only had 3 stages, this game has 5 stages and is actually complete with an ending and everything. There are a bunch of other changes, but those are the big ones. So now that we're talking about a near-complete game and not a prototype, I'm going to be a bit more critical here. The controls are pretty lousy. Sunman's ability to fly is super awkward to control. It feels very slippery. Sunman's punch is really wimpy and has way too short of a range. I wish he had a projectile. Your character's hitbox in general is really bad. I constantly get hit by enemies and projectiles when I feel like I shouldn't be. So because of your poor hitbox and terrible range, it's difficult to destroy enemies, and I usually end up trying to outrun them rather than fight them. And I feel like it's not fun when you're trying to bypass things. In general, I got through most of the game without even playing it because I was flying past the enemies rather than fighting them. This is a good example of why the ability to fly without any drawbacks might not have been a good idea. I mean, he's not Superman anymore. They could have just nerfed his flight ability. So before I mentioned how there's 5 stages, honestly I feel like this game is way too short. You could easily beat this within 15 minutes. But it's not a completely bad experience. The music is fantastic. They replaced John Williams' theme with some really good tracks here. The stages have a lot of diversity too. You're flying up a building, migrating on a moving train, navigating on a boat, so this game does try to keep things fresh, and the graphics are very nice and colorful. Overall, this could have been a great game with some changes. Sunman really needs a hitbox adjustment. I also feel like he should have a projectile, like a laser or something. He has one when you're fighting the first stage boss, but not during the regular game. If his controls were improved and maybe the game were a bit longer, I think this would have been decent. There's a chance some of these issues would have been ironed out had the game been released though. Yup, that's right. Sunman wasn't released either, but this time the reason is unknown. According to Kenji, quote, "Sunsoft asked us to make a game with a superhero called Sunman, so I was working on that, but we didn't finish the game. They, I assume by they he means Sunsoft, cancelled it before it was finished," unquote. It's honestly unclear why the higher-ups cancelled this game. It's not like the game was bad, it just needed some tweaks. I think it was a good idea to take out Superman and replace him with Sunman, because this was a perfectly fine game that had some potential. No reason to shelve a playable game just because you couldn't secure the Superman license. I think they made the right decision to make a brand new superhero, but it's possible that the control issues and gameplay issues might have been the reason they didn't go forward with this. So with the success of Batman, Sunsoft wanted to work out a deal with DC Comics to make a Superman game. They commissioned a company to develop the game and everything, but when DC had unreasonable demands, Sunsoft had no choice but to scrap the project. But then Sunsoft gave it one more chance by replacing Superman with Sunman. While this game had some things going for it, there are too many issues with the controls, hitboxes, and general gameplay. With some tinkering, I think this would have been decent, but for whatever reason, Sunsoft gave up on it. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like rating. It only takes a second and it gets my video noticed by more people. Also, if you enjoy my content, drop a subscription, that way you'll be notified when my next video comes out. Plus, it's completely free. Finally, drop a comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or just want to share your gaming experiences. This greatly helps the YouTube algorithm, and I'm usually pretty good at replying back. Anyway, have a good one, guys.